All right, ready? Okay. Good afternoon to all. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this afternoon. And introducing the panel members is Tracy Anderson and Mr. Doug Marks, all to my left, and our recording secretary is Cara Belshaw. Representing the City of Winnipeg from the Assessment Department is Ryan Vanderama. We'll be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application and will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that the applicant or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it, along with the city administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at the hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision in respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to application for exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this afternoon, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant. Following the swearing in, we'll then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions and the other applicant may have, and then it'll be the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application is brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this afternoon. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. We'll ask our secretary to swear in the assessor and or affirm him, and the same with Mr. Reimer.
Please state your name.
Ryan Valderrama.
Do you affirm the evidence you present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name. Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right. We will go to the first, or the third item on the docket, which is 780 Osborne Street. Mr. Vanderama, you can take us through this property, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first property has a file number of 19-2700. It has a roll number of 120-013-83200. It is located at 780 Osborne Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020 using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $1,098,000. The property is used as a residential apartment with one building, 3 stories, an actual year built of 1923, an effective year built of 1959. It has 14 suites with 8 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 7,132 square feet, a planned area of 2,610 square feet, and a gross floor area of 10,440 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos of the subject property. On page 4 is the income valuation workup. Again, the property has 14 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $669.38, which is a model derived rent. It has a vacancy rate of 1.8%, an expense ratio of 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $56,000. Using the capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,098,039. On page 5 are some rent comparables around the area of the subject property. They are all ranging from $684 up to $775 average monthly rent per unit. Right below it is the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. The one in the blue teardrop is the subject property. Pages 6 and 7 are the capitalization rate charts. I'll just go through them quickly. On page 6, a direct capitalization method is used to convert a property's single year of income into an indication of value by dividing the estimated net operating income by an appropriate capitalization rate. Capitalization rates can be derived from properties that have sold by dividing each property's net operating income by its sale price. For the 2020 general reassessment as of April 1st, 2018 reference date, capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income and sale prices that were time-adjusted to April 1st, 2018. The ratio statistics for the Assessment and Taxation Department's income-producing model satisfy the standards specified and set forth in the Standard on Ratio Studies as approved in April 2013 and published by the International Association of Assessing Officers, or IAAO. These capitalization rates were further supported by a review of industry standard market reports and external property appraisals. Capitalization rate reports for the first quarter of 2018 from Colliers International Canada, CBRE National Research, and Cushman & Wakefield were reviewed. The City of Winnipeg Assessment and Taxation Department does have a wide range of capitalization rates, as all parcels in the city have to be accounted for. Variables such as size, age, and location will influence the capitalization rate applied in the calculation of values. The following chart compares the published rates to the City of Winnipeg capitalization rates for the property types that are reported. The 20th and 80th percentiles are also shown for the City of Winnipeg data, indicating a narrowed range of capitalization rates used for 60% of the parcels within that specific property type. In many cases, the published rates fall within 20th and 80th percentiles, indicating the tenability of the City of Winnipeg's derived capitalization rates. If I may go through directly to multifamily, there's a section here. All of our cap rates, regardless if it's a high-rise, low-rise, they all range from 4% to 7.3%. Our 20th to 80th percentile for multifamily is 4.9 to 5.3%. On page 7, if I may go through the capitalization rate evidence, the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period as of April 1st, 2018. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. And on the third section are some multifamily sales. The first one is located at 191 Roque Street. It was sold in February 2018 with a sale price of $3,610,000. It has 36 suites, an effective year built of 1971, a sale price per suite of about $100,278. It has a calculated cap rate of 4.84%. The second one is located at 394 Talbot Avenue. It was sold in December 2017 with a sale price of $770,000. There are 11 suites, an effective year built of 1965, and a sale price per suite of about $70,000. The calculated cap rate on this one is 4.03%. The third one is located at 285 Maxwell Place. It was sold in June 2017 for $2,225,000. It has 23 suites with an effective year built of 1960. The sale price per suite is $96,739. It has a calculated cap rate of 4.4%. The fourth one is located at 277 Lanside Street. It was sold in January 2018 with a sale price of $3 million. It has 47 suites with an effective year built of 1974. The sale price per suite is at $70,000 with a calculated cap rate of 6.09%. And the last one is located at 333 Ward. It was sold in January 2016 for $18 million. It has 103 suites, an effective year built of 2006, with a sale price per suite of about $174,757. It has a cap rate of 5%. On pages 9 to 11 are is where the 2017 income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
I thank you, Mr. Vanderama. Mr. Reimer, questions of the assessor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So referring to the first page, Ms. Boardroom, of your materials, the subject, we can agree the subject was built in 1923, correct?
Correct.
Now, the department's put an effective year of 1959 on it. How, can you advise this board as to the specifics as to how that date was calculated?
Back then, I saw some information on that one. However, I wasn't able to get an information on the cost of the renovations. But I have a reason, or I have information on why there was a suite or an upgrade for the building. It was due to the upgrades to meet the minimum fire resistance rating back then. I believe there was a situation back in early 2000 where the area was having fire concerns, and that I think the city has done something about that, and that some apartment buildings were had an upgrade to meet the minimum fire resistance rating, and this was done back in 2005.
Okay, so
Information on the cost, I wasn't able to obtain that.
But you're saying, just so I'm clear, this then has nothing to do with the suites or, you know, a rehab that way. It has to do with just simply meeting the minimum fire code, correct?
There were suite upgrades, some of which were the walls, the ceilings of the units or the suites, and there were added heat detectors, smoke detectors, pole stations.
Right, that's not renovating the suites. That sounds like it all goes to the fire code, correct? That's the way I'm understanding
yes.
it. Okay.
And of course, they did the upgrades on all of the suites.
Right, on the upgrades is to putting in fire alarms and doing these things to meet code.
And it also says information on walls and ceilings. So I'm assuming it would be some minimum fire resistance on the ceilings and the walls as well.
Okay. So. but
Those are
to
the
be clear,
information I have,
okay.
yes.
That somehow then resulted, but you can't quantify, you don't have the permits and you're not sure you didn't place this effective year built on the
No, I did not.
Okay.
No, it's been there.
I'm not gonna belabor that, then I'll have a submission to make on that in due course.
Okay,
Okay, so if we can turn to page 4, please.
page 4.
So the valuation of the subject, if I understood correctly, these are all model-driven parameters from top to bottom, including the cap rate, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
There's been no overrides on it.
None.
Okay. Now, turning initially then to your page 7. And you read the statement, but what the department's position is that these rates are meant to, I guess, display the accuracy of the model, but they're not meant to be specific comparables to the subject, correct?
No, yes, that's correct.
And the department, though, Mr. Valderrama, has not provided you with any information as to the stabilized potential gross income or effective gross income or expense ratios, correct?
It's not included in this evidence, however, we have it on file.
Yeah, but I understand that, but there's no way for this board or me to determine how the stabilization was done based on what parameters for R&M, for instance. None of that information is submitted as
None
evidence.
of the line-by-line items.
Okay, okay. Now then, going to your page 6, just the page prior to that. So, and you've read through the page, but to be clear, these capitalization rates in the multifamily then, these actually have no connection whatsoever to the actual performances of the properties I've traded, because if I understood you correctly, these are, capitalization rates are based upon a model-derived NOI that's then applied to the sale price, but not the actual stabilized NOI based on the performance of the property, right?
That's based on, yes, second paragraph, yes.
Right, so it's model-driven NOIs and not actual property-specific NOIs.
None.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask that those questions asked and answers on cap rate be carried forward, because we don't have to do it again. Cap rate is a common theme in this docket, as you might expect. Those are my questions for this property. Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Reimer. Ms. Anderson, questions of the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
No, Mr. Marks?
Yes, as far as the upgrades to this apartment block were done, this was life safety upgrades in total, or were there other upgrades done as well?
As far as the information I had, it's more for fire safety and fire resistance rating.
So it was brought up to the code of the day?
Yes,
In
during
2005?
that time, yes.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Vanarama, I have a few questions. In regards to, you've adjusted the effective age by some 30 years, and but it's fire related. So normally it's applicable to the renovations of the suites.
Yes, as I've mentioned earlier, there were also suites
There
upgrades on the
was,
walls.
but you
and
don't
the
have
ceilings.
the permits or anything like
The
that?
value of the permit, no,
Okay.
I don't have it.
Okay. And I think you said it was in 2005 that that happened?
Yes, that's
somewhere
right.
around there?
And without preempting, there are some also
Okay.
in this docket that's
Okay.
the same situation. So
I'm looking just offhand at the, on your page 10, and it's in regards to the financial statements. So I'm just looking at the figure that the, I guess, the models put out for gross income. I cannot relate to the, that figure because I'm just looking at probably the, you know, if you take out some things and, you know, add the rest, I only get a gross of about 108,000. So, you know, there's a little amiss there.
108,000 based
Yeah.
on how.
Well, just based on, you know, the parking and the rents that are
Oh,
applicable.
on the
Yeah,
actuals.
on the actual, yes.
Yes.
And that goes, I think it's a year end there of December 2017, which is, you know, just before the reference year, so,
Right. This is the full year before the reference year.
yeah.
With that, I'd like to address that one. This one here, the actual is the actual receipts and then the discounts. So it means that vacancy is already accounted for,
I see.
bad debts and all those things. So now we can compare that to the effective gross income, which is only 110,000. That was model derived,
Okay,
or based on the model parameters. We got an effective gross income of 110,000, which is within $1,000.
okay, it was just, you know, like, I'm just wondering if you used this statement to, you know, to extract the gross income for the subject.
No, this is straight model.
Okay. You elaborated in regards to, and Mr. Reimer alluded to that fact about the capitalization, the extraction of the capitalization rates for, you know, Roche and, you know, these other Maxwell and Langside. And, but I'm just wondering, the only one that might be, you know, possibly applicable is the Talbot one, because it's 11 suites and the subject is 14. So, and that comes in at a you know, a 4% cap rate. So, but you're at the 5.1.
Right, we are, the model is accounting 5.1%.
So, would this be just the model generating the 5.1?
Yes, that's correct, straight model.
Okay. I just want to get everything cleared up at this point, just to, because Mr. Reimer is probably going to, he alluded to that fact too. I think that's all the questions that I have. And I did look at Mr. Reimer's presentation, so we'll hear that, but basically your NOIs are pretty close to the same.
In most
Okay,
what the
so
comment-
it's a question of cap rate. So, Mr. Reimer, the floor is yours.
Thanks. I'm going to start, Mr. Chairman, by referring back to that page 7 that you just referred to, the assessors. They're saying they're not comparables, but some specific properties. I'm asking the board to place little or no weight on that, and that goes to my questions about what the department hasn't provided to Mr. Valderrama, and certainly I'm not in any way blaming Mr. Valderrama, but the department hasn't provided him with the information upon which to judge whether the stabilization of the net operating income was done appropriately. That is a fundamental component of any capitalization rate derivation, and we just simply don't have the information here, so I'm asking the board very much to treat these capitalization rates without more information as a high degree of skepticism. Going to our page 7 of our main brief then, and you're exactly right, Mr. Chairman, the common theme I think in every one of these except one is that it virtually all boils down to cap rate. The additional wrinkle in this case relates to the effective age, because if you recall, and I think all of the members of this panel are familiar with our capitalization rate study, and certainly I know Mr. Valderrama is very familiar with it. Our capitalization rates are stratified by age, and there's age bracketing, and in this case, we're suggesting, as you can see at the top of page 7, that as Mr. Valderrama has indicated, and we agree that 1923 is the original age, but we very much disagree with an effective age of 1959 for the subject. Mr. Marks had brought that up in questioning, and I had brought that up as to what exactly was involved in coming up with 1959, and the evidence very clearly from Mr. Valderrama, and it was very straightforward, I appreciate that, was that it had to do with meeting fire code. That's a very, very different situation than when one's doing a rehab and replacing appliances and replacing flooring and doing, bathrooms and kitchens. None of that relates here to that kind of walls and ceilings, and fire code don't have anything to do with that kind of rehab. So I'm suggesting very strongly that what you'll see in our capitalization rate studies, our age bracketing for the oldest age stops at 1946, which still, even if one assumes there'd be some effective age variant put on the property, certainly for this kind of fire code related work, I wouldn't suggest under any circumstances that the effective age would go beyond 1946. So the cap rate I'm suggesting this afternoon, Mr. Chairman, is based on the pre-1946 stratification. So when you look at our page 7, and I'm not going to belabor it because our net operating income is within actually $879. We're $879 higher than the department in this case. So it all comes down to a suggestion as to cap rate. We're suggesting, for the reasons I'll get into in a second, we're suggesting a cap rate of 6.25% on the assumption that the 1923 age of something between 23 and 45 is appropriate, and that results in a value of $910,000. Turning then, if we could, please, to our capitalization rate study and what I propose to do, a couple of things. Propose to do this once and have the same questions and comments carried forward if I could. Now I will ask the question, because I know, Mr. Chairman, you're very familiar with this study. I propose to go through the study at a higher level. I can go into as much detail, as many questions as you want.
Mr. Reimer, I think, have you heard it, Doug?
Yes.
Okay. Tracy?
I have.
Okay.
So I'll keep it at the higher level and
Okay.
ask as many
Okay.
questions as you deem appropriate.
That's fine.
So page 1, this is the summary. So in this case, as you can see on our chart, we've got pre-1946 suggested cap rates of between 6.25% to 6.6%, depending on property-specific factors. And then we go through the rest of the stratifications: 46 to 59, 6.25%; 60 to 79, 6%, and then to 5.75% and 5.25% for the newer builds. And in this case, we're suggesting, as I mentioned, that this would be a pre-1946 building, although even if you considered it in the next stratification, it's at the same 6.25% rate. But we're suggesting the 6.25% in this case. So what I'll do then, if you can please turn to page 3, which is the chart. This is the core of the cap rate study. So as you can see, we've got a total of 369 properties here relating to the capitalization rate study. They were traded between, I guess, the earliest was March of 2014, and then the last one just before the valuation date at March 5th, 2018. And as you can see there, we've got capitalization rates ranging from a low of 5.13% for Triple 3 Ward, that's one of the newest properties on this list, up to a high of 6.75% for 512 Balmoral. Now, the number of units varies significantly. The lowest is 718 Beach with only 6 units, and the highest is the Triple 3 Ward, again at 103 units. So there's a wide variety of number of suites, as well as the year built, varies from 1952 at the sort of older end up to 2014 for Beach and Southview. The results of all of this information, again, all the backup as to how the NOIs were calculated and the route that we use to get to these capitalization rates, it's all attached. I'll leave that, given the familiarity of everyone with this study, I'll leave that for you to consider. Happy to answer any questions, but the conclusions we drew from this material and from the actual stabilizing of NOIs and the sale prices indicated the ranges that we have at the bottom based on the stratifications of ages. And in this case, we're suggesting, again, with this older original age of 1923, that certainly a 6 1/4 cap rate would be appropriate. And therefore, the request is to reduce the assessment from $1,098,000 to $910,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van der Remme? Questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. On the cap rate study.
Okay, yeah. Let's go straight to that.
Yes. On page 6 of the cap rate study,
Yes.
there's a heading here that says actual 2015, actual 2016, and then the third column says pro forma.
Yes.
And then on the 5th column, it says subject stabilized. Is it possible that the subject stabilized income on this instance was based on the pro forma?
Well, given that the pro forma shows an NOI of $49,780, which is very close to our NOI of $51,922, that certainly would have been a factor. The pro forma, if you see though, the pro forma indicates a much higher income of $78,845, and which is what we've used. So certainly the property, and if you look on the right-hand column right beside, so now, Mr. Chairman, I'm on line 1. And what it says is it includes RTB approved increase, which indicates that the property had been the subject of rehab. So that $78,845 would represent the higher income approved by the RTB based on the renovations that were done. So that would be the appropriate level of income to use, as opposed to the much lower pre-rehab incomes for 15 and 16.
So the income of pro forma is based on the income post-renovation?
Going forward, exactly. Includes the RTB approved increase.
So it was after the sale or before the sale?
It would have been the RTB approved increase that would have been modeled when they were buying the property.
So it wasn't really the actual income compared to the 15 and the 16?
No, oh, absolutely not, because
No.
as I say, that's the RTB, much higher RTB level of rent. That's what would have been modeled when they were buying the property.
Was there a renovation on this property?
Yes, with
210 St. Mary's?
With that jump from $38,263 to $78,000, absolutely.
When was the renovation?
There must have
Were you
been.
familiar when the renovation was done or completed? Was it before or after the sale?
It would have been after, I'm guessing shortly after, because.
After the sale?
Yes.
Okay. And this is why, partially, this is why the capitalization rate was at 6.26 instead of the 5.25 that was calculated under
Yes.
the pro forma column.
Yes, absolutely, because it's using a higher rent, but also then we've actually used slightly lower expenses. If you see there, the pro forma has $30,557.
So was there an actual already calculated for, instead of the pro forma?
Well, no, because what was
None?
modeled was the RTB increased rents. It's all around.
Okay, so it's in anticipation of it, okay.
It's anticipation, but it's RTB approved, so therefore it's Because of course, in the multifamily world, if you don't have RTB approval, then you're stuck with
No.
like the guidelines of
Mhm.
2 to 3%.
Right.
So the RTB approved higher levels would have been specifically modeled based on their approval, otherwise it would be vastly overstating the potential for it.
And so on page 8,
Yes.
there's the only column that indicates RVA.
Yeah.
What does it stand for?
RVA is our Valuation and Advisory Group, so this is
Oh, okay.
information we got from our appraisal group.
So this is not another actual numbers.
Yeah, actually, it would be, our appraisal group would have got the actuals based on the work that we did, so yes, it would be based on actuals. But as far as us having direct access to those numbers from the owner, no.
No? Okay.
It was us using the RVA numbers.
So it means that also this is another projection based on the information that you have, correct? Or the RVA
Not
department?
not projection, this is the information that RVA got from the owner,
Mm.
and therefore what was in place, but it is information that we got indirectly through RVA, not directly from the owner, but no, it's not a projection.
Page 9 on the 512 Balmoral, there's
Yes.
another column of pro forma. Again, it's the same
Yeah.
line of questioning that I had, Mr. Chair, just to facilitate faster or for time consideration.
Well, pro forma, there is a pro forma column, but if you look, Mr. Boardroom, in this case, the rent, this isn't a case where someone was modeling an approved RTB much higher rent. This is a case where the actual 17 NOI is 118,439, and what we've applied in our study is 118,125.
Okay.
So yes, the pro forma's in there, but it doesn't have a bearing on the cap rate definition.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Marks?
None for me, thank you.
In going through, I guess, Mr. Reimer, is this your presentation or is this Mr. Dupont's?
No, well, okay.
Because his name's here.
It is, so, sorry, are you in the cap rate study or are you on the brief?
I'm on the brief.
Okay, Mr. That's an important point, actually. Mr. Dupont did in fact prepare these briefs. I've
Yeah.
reviewed them, and I'm here
Okay.
representing
So
all this. But
you're-
yeah,
Yeah. So these are not your figures that you are presenting?
these
I
are
mean, these are...
figures that Henry prepared and I'm presenting.
Yes, you're presenting, okay. So I was going to ask you if you're Mr. Dupont today. But obviously not.
Yes, I am. I don't speak French very well.
Okay. So basically, your argument is cap rate?
Indeed.
Okay, okay. Mr. Van der Remme, do you wish a summation, if you want?
There was allusion or alluded fact that, or there was, Mr. Reimer alluded that there was no attached net operating income or expense information, income and expense information attached in our evidence. Again, it says in our blurb, it was based on a 3-year average. It didn't say 3-year, but that's what we used to calculate the net operating income, and it's the actuals that were submitted by the owner or the property manager to our department. So in that case, I think there's no line by line that we have attached here, but it's a credible source, I would say, because it came from the owner and the property manager. And with that said, I think that's all that I can say on.
Mr. Reimer, just one other question. Has this been appealed? I mean, where is it at? Is that at the municipal board? I don't know.
Believe it is,
Okay.
but
I noticed, I guess, it was appealed before.
it was indeed,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it was.
Do you wish summation?
Just on that point, if you wish to see it, pages 22 and 23 of our brief have the previous board order. I'm not going to refer to them, but if you're looking for it later,
Yeah.
it's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind a quick summation again,
Yep.
if we can apply this carry forward.
Yep.
But this is the very question. So I've asked the board to give little or no weight to the capitalization rate, the specific properties that have been submitted by the department. And here's why. Could we please turn briefly back to page 7? And I'll just illustrate this. If the board recalls, I asked Mr. Valderrama if he'd been given the details, and he's correctly replied no. It can make a very, very substantial difference in the valuation of the property and the cap rate you derive from it based on the stabilizing that's done. Without seeing those details, it's impossible to judge the accuracy of the cap rate, or to at least be able to see what was done to see if you agree with it. And I'm going to give you the example on page 7. So, you know, we've got 5 years worth of a lot of the data, 3 years for 2015 to 2017. But if you'll note, I mean, in 2015, the effective gross income was $103,700. It's gone all the way up to $108,439 in 2017. So depending on how you stabilize that, that's going to have a fairly significant effect. And then again, going down to the expenses, the expenses for 2015 were $47,950, and they were all the way up to $57,687 for 17. So when you're, the whole purpose of stabilizing is to be able to show this is what an investor would perceive on a go forward. And if you've got some particularly high or low numbers in any of those years that you're using to stabilize, you have to make a judgment call as to how you're going to incorporate those odd numbers. Most often they apply to repairs and maintenance, where these things can really vary year over year. But there can be other factors as well. So what we're trying to do in our cap rate study and what we've provided to the board on page 7 is the details, so you've got the true picture and can truly judge the validity of both the stabilization of the NOI and the cap rate. And without that NOI stabilization information here, there's just simply, I'm suggesting, no way to verify if the NOI that was applied is appropriate. So with all that said, I'm asking for, and that same recurring theme in the future appeals, but in this case I'm asking for the 6.25% and $910,000. Thank you.
I thank you. We'll go on to the next one, which is 526 Walker Avenue. Mr. Van der Emmen, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 19-3889. It has a roll number of 120-104-56000. It is located at 526 Walker Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $896,000. It is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories, an actual year built of 1912, an effective year built of 1968, and there are 8 suites and 4 outdoor parking stalls. The land area is 4,674 square feet. The planned area is 2,000 square feet. The gross floor area is 8,000 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos of the subject property. Now page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 8 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $955.74. The property has also a vacancy rate of 1.8%, an expense ratio of 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $45,689. Using the capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $895,863. Page 5 are some rent comparables. They are all ranging from $984 up to $1,367, and they're within the same market region as the subject property. On pages 6 and 7 are the capitalization rate charts that we've discussed earlier. On pages 9 to 11 is where the 2017 income and expense information is, and that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reimer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Mr. Volder, I'm on page 4.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a valuation from top to bottom, including cap rate, that's model driven, correct?
Correct.
There's no overrides based on the performance of the property.
None.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are my questions, and I've asked that the previous questions asked and answered on cap rate be carried forward.
Okay. Sanderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Marks?
Just one question. Have there been any upgrades done to this facility at all?
Same as the previous property, it was also subject to that residential upgrade for fire and for minimum fire rating.
And what year was that done?
I think this one is back in 2007, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vanderama,
Yes.
the previous property was a little older, and this one is a little newer. So, and you're using the same cap rate.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right.
It's the effective year built, I think, is within the same age range.
Okay.
We-
Reason why I expressed that, because Mr. Reimer, I think the floor is going to be yours, and you are using a different cap rate.
Indeed.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr. Marks asked a good question, and the reason I didn't ask it was because it's actually not in dispute, but the assessor, as with the previous file, in this case, there's a significant difference between the original age and the effective age. But our information actually goes beyond what Mr. Valderrama had. If you turn briefly, please, to our page 21. And this is actually a building that we know hasn't been subject to a rehab and renovation. So they talk about the newly renovated suites. So all the things I talked about in the previous appeal relating to, the flooring and the appliances and doing kitchens and bathrooms, this is a building that has had some of that work done, and therefore, as opposed to the previous property where we were very much questioning and disputing that effective age, in this case we're not disagreeing with the effective age of 1968 based on the renovated asset. So then if you turn then to our page 7, and here again, if I'm going to get straight to the issue, if we go to our line 33 on page 7, it is, we're within $500 of the model-driven NOI, so that is obviously not material. However, we are suggesting a cap rate based on the information in our cap rate study of 6%. The 6% being the lower rate is based on, and I'll just refer to it, the board need not turn there, but the stratification by age is 1960 to 1979, where in our study we suggested 6%, and the 1968 effective age falls squarely within that. So we're suggesting the capitalization rate this afternoon of 6%, which results in a capital value of $752,000. So for those reasons, we're requesting that the board reduce this assessment from $896,000 to $752,000. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vanderama, questions?
No questions on this presentation.
Okay. Tracy?
I just need a minute, Mr. Chair.
I'll ask Mr. Marks then.
Yes, on this one, since there were more upgrades done to the facility, were there any building permits taken out for this?
I'm sorry,
Any building permits taken out for this?
I imagine there would have had to have been, because as soon as you start talking about, presumably there's some of the rentals involved electrical and or plumbing, there would have been, but I don't have those permit values with me. But
No idea on value then?
no, I'm not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Tracy? Okay. Mr. Reimer, just, so for the previous property, 6.25, and this one is 6, so they're both, like in Fort Rouge, I think they are, and they're close to the same age, so why the variation?
But it's a stratification, you see. There has to be stratifications cut off somewhere.
Okay.
And because and again, recall that the previous property was built in 1923, and our submission, it shouldn't be much of a variant age anywhere near that. So I'm thinking of that building more as a 1923 building. But having said that, our stratification in our study for the 6.25 rate ends basically at 1959. This property is, again, squarely within the 1960 to 1975 bracket, and we're using the 6%. So we believe the stratification is fair, and that this would then therefore fall in the 6% range as opposed to 6.25.
All right. Summation, either party?
None from me. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Let's go to Woodward Avenue, number 467, Mr. Vanderama.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next property has a file number of 19-2341. It has a roll number of 120-147-67200. The property is located at 467 Woodward Avenue. Again, we're dealing with the roll year of 2020. This is the first date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $1,529,000. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 2 stories, effective and actual year built of 1963. The property has 16 suites with 10 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 12,652 square feet, a planned area of 5,022 square feet, and a gross floor area of 15,066 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos of the subject property. On page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 16 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $847.85. It also has a vacancy rate of 1.8% and an expense ratio of 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $81,063. Using the capitalization rate of 5.3%, the capitalized income is $1,529,491. On pages 6 and 7 are the capitalization rate charts. On page 9 to page 11 are the 2017 income and expense information. And I missed out, on page 5, the rent comparables. They are all ranging from $933 up to $1,028 average monthly rent per unit. And right below it is where the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
I thank you. Mr. Reimer, questions?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, Mr. Boardroom, on your page 4, this is a model-driven valuation from top to bottom, including cap rate, that didn't refer to the actual performance of the property, correct?
This is model-derived parameters. These are all.
No overrides on
No
it.
overrides.
Okay.
Okay.
And so the model has suggested an effective gross income of $159,857. If we turn to your page 10, in this particular case, the total revenue after discounts, and that's towards the top of page 10, the total revenue after discounts and adding in parking and coin laundry is $131,339. You can agree that those are the two figures that are before the board this afternoon, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to belabor it for reasons I'll explain shortly, but those are my questions, and if we could ask cap rate questions asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions.
Mr. Marks?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Vanderama, the previous properties
Mm-hmm.
are 5.1, so we suddenly go to 5.3. So
Yes.
the reasoning?
Again, it's a model-derived
Okay.
capitalization rate,
Mhm.
and a lot of factors may have come into play on that one.
Mhm.
But it's
And Woodward is in Port Rouge too? I'm not sure.
yeah, in the map, it
Okay.
looks like it's within the same, almost the same market region.
All right.
I'm not sure if the mix come into play, the bedroom mix.
Yeah, but it's got a good mix. There's no bachelor units. They're all 1 bedrooms or 2s, so all the
And
better.
And this one has a higher average monthly rent as well.
Mhm. Mhm. All right. These are just questions that sort of come up and.
Yes, of course.
All right, Mr. Reimer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 7, please. So, if the board recalls, in my questioning of Mr. Boldram, I pointed out there was a pretty significant gap between what the property is actually generating, which is only 131,000, call it as an effective gross income, versus the model EGI, which is closer to 160,000. So there is almost a $30,000 gap. But when you look at our line 33, by the time we have calculated the net operating income, we're actually remarkably close. It's within $7,000 of each other. The reason for that is that our expenses are also significantly lower than what the model had predicted. So we've, as you can see in our stabilized column, the EGI that we are suggesting this afternoon based on the actual performance of the property, 131,267 with expenses of 57,144, resulting in a suggested NOI this afternoon of 74,122. This is a property that has both an original age and an effective age of 1963. So again, referring back to our CAP study, that places it in the bracket of 1960 to 1979, which we're suggesting indicates a rate of 6.0%. So applying that 6% cap rate to the NOI of 74,122 results in a suggested value this afternoon of $1,235,000, and we request that the board order accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderema?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Anderson?
I have no question.
Mr. Marks?
Yes, just one. On the repair and maintenance schedule there, the repairs are relatively same right throughout. Is this just normal wear and tear maintenance schedule?
Indeed, it would be. That's a very good question, Mr. Chairman, by Mr. Marks. So if you look at the right-hand column, it shows, it's kind of cut off, but it shows the amount per suite, $960 per suite. And certainly with a 1963 vintage building, that is anything sort of sub-1,000 on a building of this vintage, we'd suggest is very conservative. There's certainly many top-flight landlords that will typically spend more than that in a given year. So it is based on regular repair and maintenance and nothing more.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Reimer, do you know what the discounts are?
Yes, that is a function of, so if one of two things. It often arises where they've applied for and received RTB approval for rent increases beyond the guideline, but they're unable to, from a market perspective, they're unable to actually charge rents that high and keep their tenants. So what they will do though, they don't, because they've got the RTB's approval for the increases, landlords still want to show that face rate because they want to show on, that these are the rents that are being charged, so that's the basis of the rental increases on a go forward. But if the market is such that the tenants are either they're not able to retain those tenants, or the tenants are not, new tenants are not secured at those higher rent levels, then they will actually provide discounts, and that's what's happening here. Or the other thing that can happen, sorry, that's not what's happening here, but the other thing that can happen that is happening here is that the market is such that in order to retain tenants and keep the building as close to full as possible, they will actually offer discounts or rental incentives to tenants either moving in or tenants that are there, and that's what those discounts relate to. It's a function of just staying competitive in the market based on the asset that you've got and the location that you have.
So I'm looking at the gross, but I'm also looking at the effective gross income.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a heck of a discrepancy in regards to, what the city's at and what you're at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't...
I'd suggest the model has, I don't know what happened with the model in this case, but the performance of the property, relatively speaking, has been very consistent between 13 and 17, or within a reasonable amount, and it just bears very little resemblance to the EGI calculated by the model. Having said that, though, the model's actually kicking out an expense figure that's far too high. Our expenses are much lower than the model, so that's why I say,
I see that.
It's just like the model seems to have.
But they normally run around 50%.
Oh, the expense ratios?
Yeah.
Give or take, yes.
Give or take.
Yeah. For this vintage, yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So in that respect, the property is obviously performing lower than what the model predicted on the income side, but it's also performing better than predicted on the as far as the expenses, because our stabilized expense ratio is 43.5% as opposed to 49.
All right. Summation, either party? Okay.
None for me, thank you.
Okay, Gordon, 1014, Mr. Vanderema, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 19-2610. It has a roll number of 120-303-69000. The property is located at 1014 Corridon Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $1,119,000. The property is a residential apartment with one building and 2 stories, an actual and effective year built of 1955. The property has 14 suites and 6 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 6,164 square feet, a planned area of 3,268 square feet, and a gross floor area of 9,804 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos of the subject property. Page 4 is the income valuation summary. The property has 14 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $682.17. Has a vacancy rate of 1.8%, an expense ratio of 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $57,070. Using the capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,119,020. On page 5 are some rent comparables. They're all ranging from $713 up to $775 average monthly rent per unit. And right below it is where the map of the subject property is and the comparable rents. Pages 6 and 7 are the capitalization rate charts. And on pages 9 to 11 is where the 2017 income and expense information is. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Reimer, questions?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Boardroom, again, this was model driven top to bottom, including cap rate, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Chairman, questions asked and answered, please, on cap rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions.
Mr. Marks?
Yes, there's a major roof repair done on this place to the tune of $62,000. Is there any permits taken out for that to go along with that?
I am not sure, was it able to look at that information and have it with me, Mr. Chair?
There seems to be a fair number of repairs done in 2017. Nothing further, thank you.
I have no questions. Mr. Reimer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask the board members and Mr. Boldrown to turn to page 7, please? So in this case, the statement that Mr. Marks just referred to, that is the operating statement for 3 properties. It's the subject property at 1014 and also though includes 1011 Corden and 1017 Corden. At the top of page 7, you can see the relative number of suites and number of rooms within each of the 3 buildings. The allocation that's been done here in this case is based upon an allocation both of revenue and expenses of 27.7%, and that 27.7% is based upon the number of rooms in the subject relative to the number of rooms in total over the 3 buildings. So with that 27.7% allocation, the subject's stabilized amounts are shown in the column labeled as 1014 Corridon stabilized. And as you can see at line 33 in that column, our net operating income is $55,952, very, very close to the model-driven NOI, in this case of $57,070. The difference is not material. So again, the issue in this case relates to capitalization rate. And we're suggesting with this 1956 building, and for the reasons we've set forth in our cap study, that 6.25% would be appropriate, resulting in a request this afternoon to reduce the assessment to $895,000. I do note that the parking, one additional factor in this property is that the number of parking spots is quite low relative to the total number of suites. There's 14 suites and only 6 parking stalls. And we have made that note as well on the valuation. So for all those reasons, we're suggesting a value of $895,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderema?
No questions.
Ms. Anderson?
I have no question.
Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Reimer, deficiency in regards to, I'm looking for the exact word, but.
Deferred maintenance kind of thing?
Deferred, no, functional obsolescence
Oh,
for the parking.
that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Having 6 stalls for 14 suites is not ideal.
Okay.
You will typically want to have closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. And when you're talking about sort of a 50% or less ratio, that's the negative. When we say the low parking in that valuation sort of to the bottom right-hand corner, that's why we made that note. This is lower than one would hope to expect.
And you gave percentages, and you had mentioned some addresses. Are they all sister buildings?
They're all accounted for. You know,
Okay.
whether they're identical, well, I should say, at the top of page 7.
Yep.
It looks like 10, 11,
Oh, I
and
see.
10, 14
Okay.
are basically identical,
Yeah.
but 10, 17 is a bit larger. So,
Okay.
but they're all treated as one economic entity.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, if I may, on the
Yes.
parking
Yep.
concern. The low parking would somehow typically be under the income. It will be reflected on the income. If it is free and included in the revenue or the rent that they're imposing, I would probably have an inclination to increase a little bit on the rent or separate parking. If there is a low parking, then there would be a low revenue if the parking is being paid for. So I think putting it in a cap rate by increasing it makes it double dipping, for lack of better term, and for that matter. So I mean, if it's a low revenue due to low parking rents, then it should be reflected on the revenue and not cap rate. That's my opinion on that one.
I'd prefer to reply to that statement. I don't think that's
Yep.
quite accurate. Mr. Valderrama, we can agree certainly that if you don't have as many parking stalls, your parking revenue is going to be lower, no question. But the difficulty is this, that I'm suggesting, Mr. Valderrama, and the reason we're saying it's a negative influence is if you're trying to attract and retain tenants, and those tenants are not using transit, they need parking, and if your building has very limited parking and your 6 stalls are accounted for, that tenant's going to move on to the next building that has a parking stall for them. And that's why it is a negative factor, and we're suggesting certainly that, no question, it affects the income, but it also is a risk factor. Now, having said all that, in this case, the 6.25% is the same rate we would have applied even without the parking issue, but certainly we believe that's another negative factor in this case. Thank you.
In that case, is there an issue on vacancy on this property?
Pardon me?
Is there an issue on vacancy on this property? If
Well,
people are looking for
There have been discounts of between 6,300 and 7,000.
per year, okay?
So that's certainly, you know, it has a negative, there's negative consequences through discounts and or vacancy. In 2015, the vacancy was particularly bad, but the discounts have been applied consistently.
Page 9, okay. I was looking at page 7, sorry. I'm used to page 7 on this chart. Okay, sure.
So, Mr. Reimer, just to follow up, the 6.25 cap rate is applicable because of the age too?
1956, that's, in fact, to be very clear, forget about the parking issue, we would have been asking for 6.25% anyway.
Okay.
It's the same as what we're suggesting. It's bracketed within the 1946 to 59 bracket at 6.25, and
Okay.
parking is just another, we're suggesting, negative influence in the case of the subject, but we haven't bumped up the cap rate.
Summation either party, or was that it?
None for now, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to Grosvenor, 883, whenever you're ready.
And the next property has a file number of 19-4443. It has a roll number of 120-229-95000. It is located at 883 Grosvenor Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020 using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $1,225,000. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 3 stories, an actual year built of 1913, and an effective year built of 1963. The property has 7 suites with 4 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 6,018 square feet, a plan area of 2,957 square feet, and a gross floor area of 9,792 square feet. On page 3 are some aerial photos, or a couple of aerial photos of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 7 units. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,377.18. It has a vacancy rate of 1.8%, an expense ratio of 45%, giving it a net operating income of $62,481. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,225,118. On page 5, are some rent comparables. They are all ranging from $1,561 up to $1,741. On pages 6 and 7 are some capitalization rate charts, and pages 9 and 10 is where the 2017 income and expense information is. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, Mr. Boardroom, on page 4, that's a model-driven evaluation from top to bottom, including cap rate, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The original age, the year that the improvements were constructed was 1913. In this case, the departments applied a variant age of 1963. Do you have the details as to how the 1963 was calculated relative to the 1913 original age?
It's the same reasoning as the other earlier properties. There was another residential building upgrade due to minimum fire rating.
Okay.
It's the same.
So it's
Same-
similar to what
the same
you
era.
discussed earlier?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
okay.
same years also.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I am kind of curious about that effective age thing. I didn't think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't think that it increased a fire safety rating was included as a criteria for a change in the effective age. I thought it had to be something more substantial. Is it just that the model drives that?
No, it's because when I was looking at the other two and this one, there were also upgrades in the suites in terms of the ceilings and the walls. It's not just putting fire alarm or pull down or those heat sensors. And also, I think they have also improved on the hallways, not just installing those devices, small devices.
So the walls and ceilings are improved with more fire-resistant material as opposed to what was there
Yes,
originally?
that's correct, yeah.
And so that allows for the model to upgrade the effective year or effective age?
Back then, I think it was looked at by a different assessor and determined that it was the effective year that he or she determines. I'm not sure of the costs because it wasn't on our file.
Okay.
I was looking at a different system which did not include the cost, the total cost of the renovations or whatever upgrades were done on the buildings. However, it was determined by a different assessor that it should be at that effective year built.
I think I'd like to see more proof about how that works going forward. That's it for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
Nothing for me, thank you.
I have none. Mr. Reimer, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Anderson's questions when I'm making the statements, I just don't consider having the building brought up to a minimum fire code requirement as being in any way similar to the rehab I was talking about with the previous building, where you're talking about flooring and, flooring in kitchens and bathrooms and such, two very, very different things. Appreciate that being able to say our building meets fire code is a good thing. It's not something where that's going to result, I'd suggest, in any significant ability to enhance your revenue, whereas rehabs and refurbishments certainly will. So hence, in this case, as with the previous case, we do take issue with the variant age that the apartments put on it. With the original year built of 1914, if I could refer the board and Mr. Valderrama to our page 9, I guess it is in this case. Yes, page 9, please. So on page 9, actually, our effective gross income on line 13 is very, very close. We're within, in this case, $1,000 basically. Our expenses, however, on line 31 are somewhat higher. We're at $56,230 as opposed to the model-driven expenses of $51,000. At the end of the day, our net operating incomes on line 33 are quite close, but we are about $4,000 less. And for the reasons we set forth in our cap rate study, we're suggesting 6.25%. That 6.25% being predicated on an assumption that even if one applied a variant age or an effective age, it would be not higher than 1959, which in itself would be a substantial adjustment to the property. So we're suggesting 6.25% in this case, resulting in an assessed value request of $936,000. There are, at the bottom, you see the notes there, there's, Mr. Valderrama's been very straightforward in his comments. We do have a note that there was some renovations done in 2014. This is a property where we have the 2017 information, and we have we have the entire 2015, parts of the 14 and the 13 information. So as you can see there, the net operating income has increased substantially from 2013, when it was only $34,700, to 2017 when it was $58,166, and our NOI suggestion of $58,527. So the NOI clearly has increased significantly, and that presumably would be a function of the renovations that were done in 2014, but certainly not renovations that I'd suggest would support an effective age in the 1960s. So in this case, asking for that 6.25 and request the value of $936,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderama?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
I think I have one here. What can you tell us? I guess, Carrie, there's something, there's easement for parking?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
You know what? Yes, indeed. So if you go to, very, very good question. If you go to line 29, this is a good example. I talked in the earlier one just prior to this where the parking I'm suggesting is a negative factor, but we haven't even mentioned it here, and the reason is this owner has actually made arrangements for his tenants and is paying for it annually for his tenants to park right across the back lane. So he's provided, through a separate easement arrangement, a small lot for his tenants to park in, so that he has not sufficient parking, but he has at least some parking for his tenants. That's why, as opposed to the previous property where the parking was suggesting was difficult, in this case there are 4 parking spots in 7 suites, so the ratio isn't great, but at least he's got the 4 spots through the parking easement and is able to provide those to his tenants. So that is the expense that shows up on line 29 in this case. Failing that, he would have no parking whatsoever.
Do you know how many stalls offhand? 4?
Yes, I do know. It is 4 stalls on page 2, please.
Okay.
If you look at page 2, so you've got the subject with the red marking on it, and then to the immediate north of it, you can see the 4 cars parked just across the lane there. That's the easement that he's got. It's that lot.
Okay. And there's no parking stalls behind?
There's no parking stalls on the subject itself, like none. That's why he's got to provide at least, he's got that easement in place so he can provide at least some stalls. Yeah.
Thank you.
So he pays about $100 per stall per month.
You know what?
And am I understanding that he
4,800.
doesn't recover that?
Pardon?
Am I understanding that he doesn't recover that? He charges 37 stabilized and he pays 48 stabilized?
You know what, sorry, just to jump in on at the bottom of page 2, I thought it was 4 stalls, it's actually 9 stalls. So at the very bottom paragraph on page 2, parking easement on 68 Yale for 9 parking stalls in perpetuity. In 2017, the easement cost was $4,800. So,
Yeah. So
in
that's
this
how many,
case,
Kerry?
9 parking
Nine?
stalls? Yeah. So in this case, what he's charging, what he's able to get for the parking revenue, now I'm back on our page 9. What he's actually able to charge his tenants is $3,700. He's paying $4,800, so it's there's a bit of a difference there. He's losing about $1,000, but at least he's able then to attract the tenants because he's got the parking stalls and generate rent from it. And it's not quite, but it's near to a break-even proposition with the easement cost that he's got. And it is for 9 stalls, not 4. So I think the department's got 4 stalls on here, but actually with that easement, it's 9 stalls, as we understand it.
So how many stalls are we talking about? Are we
Nine-
talking
nine-
13
No,
or 9?
9 altogether.
Nine.
It's 9
Nine.
total. Yeah.
9 total.
Yeah. So it's basically 1 per suite,
Okay.
or a little more. It's actually a little
Yeah.
more, 1.2.
So your cap rate takes that into consideration then?
See, there'd be no adjustment because he's got sufficient parking. And
Yeah.
so the expense, the revenue from the parking and the expense is all showing on the income. So there isn't an additional risk factor because he actually is able to provide the parking. And so it wouldn't be a negative factor in this case because he's actually got 9 stalls, which is even better than a 1-to-1 ratio.
So how long does this easement run for?
The wording used by Mr. Dupont was in perpetuity, so I believe it's
Okay.
just an easement that,
Okay.
I mean, if he said at some point, approached the owner and said, I don't need it anymore, I guess they could agree to terminate.
So if somebody wants to
easement
buy the
off.
property,
They gotta accept, yeah, they gotta take it with that easement. If somebody wants to buy that property across the lane,
Yeah.
they have to buy that property with the easement
with
in
the
place.
easement?
Yeah, but then they get the revenue as well.
Okay. And what about if he wants to sell the property, the subject?
I don't know if the easement is assignable. I would hope it would be, because otherwise he's got a real problem.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
would think it would be, if the easement's registered on title, I would think that easement would provide for a successor for the subject, in that circumstance, but
So is that on the property title right now?
it's on the title of that property to the north where the parking is. Yeah, there is an actual easement registered against that title. For
Is
this
there
parking.
something stating the same?
Would there be
way?
something for the subject?
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
Oh, the cross
Yeah,
easement
maybe a
that way.
caveat, be a caveat, I guess.
I don't think so. I think it
No?
would just be on the, neighboring property. It would be something that
Yeah.
the vendor would say, I
Yeah.
got this easement, so we have sufficient parking, but I don't think the subject would have it.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, no, you can't.
Please, thank you. So I'm noticing talking about vacancies, your line 5, highish vacancy in 2013, highish vacancy in 2015, with some gaps in the information there, but clearly the fact that there is enough parking is not it's not abating the issue of vacancies, so do we know why that happened, and was there something going on because it wasn't a parking issue clearly?
No,
as it
no.
has been in other examples, so.
No, I think given the timing, so the information that we have on file from 2013 to 2015 was obtained from our current client who obtained the historical information from the previous property manager. Those vacancy issues look to me like a building, I'm not going to say mismanaged, those look like vacancy issues relating to either a building that wasn't in very good shape or a building that was just being run in such a way that they weren't maximizing the tenancies in the building. When you look at 2017, the vacancy is 1.7%. I think that's a little more reflective of what this is one of the top flight managers, what a top flight manager would be able to do in terms of keeping it closer to full with the way they maintain it, with the way they operate it, with all of these things, including the parking. So I'm not suggesting the 13.5% and 13 or the 7% vacancy. I'm not suggesting I think those are peculiar to the situation at the time for the property itself and how it was being managed.
Okay, so 13 was bad, renovations as per your note in the remarks in 14.
Yeah.
Did that carry over into 15
It did.
possibly? So we have less vacancy, but still a fairly hefty amount, and then smooth running?
It may well have. What I do note is to whatever extent the renovations, and this is partly why I'm suggesting, if you look at 2015, the potential gross rent was 105,492. And in 2017, it was 110,612. So when one has renovated, when you've rehabbed it or refurbished it with all these wonderful things with kitchens, bathrooms, everything else, you do expect to see a very significant uptick in the rents, otherwise it's not worth it. That uptick is not evident here, so I think the 2017 performance is more what one would expect on a go forward, but I also am suggesting very strongly that when you look at the income stream, there isn't a lot of uptick, so the renovations that were done would not be, those kind of refurbishment things where you'd expect to see a lot more tenants attracted and be a significantly higher rent. But the vacancy is much more stable at 1.7%. Yeah.
You won one battle. You won one battle.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that's it.
You're welcome. Summation?
No, thanks, sir.
Okay, I think we'll take a 5-minute break and, okay. If you want to stretch or use the facilities, they're right through that door there. Okay. We'll call the meeting back to order, and we're going to go to Corden Avenue, 1011 Corden. Mr. Vanderama, whenever you're ready.
Next property has a file number of 19-2604. It has a roll number of 120-303-32100. It is located at 1011 Corden Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $1,116,000. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 2 stories, an actual and effective year built of 1956. It has 14 suites with 5 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 6,047 square feet, a planned area of 3,268 square feet, and a gross floor area of 9,804 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos for the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 14 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $680.36. The vacancy rate is 1.8%, and the expense ratio is 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $56,918. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,116,039. On page 5 are some rent comparables. They're all ranging from $713 up to $815 average monthly rent per unit. Right below it is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. Pages 6 and 7 are the capitalization rate charts. And pages 9 to page 11 is where the 2017 income and expense information for the subject property. That's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Walderham, again on page 4, it's model-driven, top to bottom, including cap, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Chairman, questions asked and answered on cap rate, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions.
Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Vanderama, nobody's asked a question. Have you been to any of these properties?
No, I wasn't able to.
Okay. And the fact that the subject has only got 5 parking stalls, does that have anything to do with the cap rate or any deterrent factor in regards to the value?
As I've mentioned earlier, if there is any that would affect the, that would have an effect on the income is, it would be under the rent or gross potential rent.
Thank you. Mr. Reimer, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Page 7, please, of our submission. So, in this case, this is the, we had earlier heard one of the two properties that were truly sister properties with the same units and same number of rooms. This is the second of those two. So this one being 1011 Corridon, we've used the same methodology as we show on page 7 with the allocation. If you recall, it was accounted for as one economic unit for the subject, 1014 and 1017. Skipping down to line 33, our calculation of the net operating income that would be attributable to the subject is actually, again, very close to that derived by the model. We're about $3,000 or $3,500, I guess, lower, so slightly lower. And the capitalization rate we're suggesting, based on this 1956 building, for the reasons set forth in the study, is 6.25%. Recall that our bracketing for the 6.25% ends at 1959. So, Mr. Chairman, you've raised the question about the parking stalls, and we do believe that is a negative influence here, but we haven't, to be clear, we haven't adjusted our standard capitalization rate upwards. We've continued with the 6.25%, but we are suggesting, for reasons I mentioned earlier, certainly don't disagree with Mr. Valderrama that in and of itself, the number of parking stalls certainly would dictate the amount of revenue you're getting, but going beyond that, the negative influence comes into play with your ability to attract and retain tenants. And if a tenant has a need for a parking stall and you don't have one to offer, then they're not going to take even if the suite's vacant, they're not going to take it. They'll move on to the next property that does have a stall available to them. So we do believe that's, when you get below the 1-to-1 ratio, that is a negative influence. And especially in this case, we're close to 36%, very much below 1-to-1 ratio, and we believe that would be a negative factor in this case. Therefore, for all these reasons, suggesting 6.25, resulting in a value of $857,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderama.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Anderson,
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Marks.
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Reimer, I just have, would you know, can you put a value in regards to the lack of parking?
Quantified precisely? No.
No.
I'm suggesting, again, for those very reasons, it's a negative influence, but I have nothing concrete to say it should be 10 points on the cap or 15 points on the cap or anything. If it gets to be certainly if the market gets to be extremely competitive, the way it's going to ultimately manifest itself is through significant and chronic vacancy issues, but the day-to-day effect is when the market is, balanced or a little bit in favor of the renters as opposed to the landlords, then it's going to start to have that effect, but nothing concrete to say whether it should be 10 points, 12 points, what it might be. Haven't adjusted here in any event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Summation, either party? Okay. Okay, St. Anne's Road, 170, Mr. Vanderama.
Mr. Chair, the next property has a file number of 19-2287. The roll number is 08001635000. It is located at 170 St. Anne's Road. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020. Using reference date of April 1st, 2018, the assessed value is $1,582,000. The property is a residential apartment with one building and 2 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1961. There are 17 units with 17 outdoor parking stalls. It has a land area of 14,497 square feet, a planned area of 5,194 square feet, and a gross floor area of 15,582 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos for the subject property. On page 4, is where the income valuation summary is. As mentioned earlier, there are 17 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $794.15. It has a vacancy rate of 1.8%, an expense ratio of 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $80,675. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,581,863. Page 5 are some rent comparables. They're all ranging from $805 up to $877 average monthly rent per unit. And right below it is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. Pages 6 and 7 are some capitalization rate charts. Pages 9 to page 11 is the 2017 income and expense information. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Model driven top to bottom on footing cap.
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Cap rate questions asked and answered, please.
Okay. Ms. Anderson?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Marks?
Have there been any major upgrades done to this apartment complex at all?
Just looking at the actual and effective year built, I don't see any significant renovations.
So, Mr. Van Rema, you haven't been to this building either?
No, I wasn't able to inspect the property.
Okay. Mr. Reimer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 7, please. So as you see, I'm going to skip right down again, line 33. In this case, our calculation of the stabilized NOI for the subject is actually a wee bit higher than the department's. We're at $83,913, so we're about $3,000 higher than the model-driven NOI. We are, for the reasons again set forth in our cap rate study, this is a 1961 build, and we're suggesting a cap rate of 6%, resulting in a indicated value of $1,399,000 with the application of that 6%. So that's the value we are requesting this afternoon. Just to again reinforce, and if the board recalls, our age bracketing for this property is in the 1960 to 1979 range. So at 1961, this subject does fall within that range, and we are asking for the 6% rate. Thank you.
Mr. Van Rema?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
Just one question, Mr. Reimer. The last property was 6.25%,
Yeah.
and the year built 1956, and this is 1961. So,
So our bracketing, yep.
Yeah.
Very, very fair question. Our bracketing starts at 1960. That's the cutoff we've used for a 6% rate. This falls at the very low end of that bracket, and in the previous property, the adjacent cutoff for that bracket is 1959 at the high end, so hence the difference.
okay. And like you say, your gross is lower than the city's, and is that substantiated, your gross substantiated by the INE?
Yes, exactly. So the stabilized amounts, effectively looking at line 3, our stabilized potential gross is based on the 2017 actual, so that's the highest amount obviously of all the years. And our effective gross is also based upon the addition then of the laundry rent and the miscellaneous income from 2017. So the 155,984 is the highest figure of any shown there, and we've just applied that. The corresponding expenses are a wee bit lower than what the department has, and hence the calculation of the NOI that's a wee bit higher at the end of the day.
So we covered off, I asked you before about the discounts,
Yes.
okay? But they were up in 16, and then you know, substantially lower in 17, and that's the average that you took. So what happened there?
So if you go, in this particular case, it's not normal, but in this particular case, if you go to line 28, the wages and benefits, and if you go to the very right, the remarks, it says in rent discounts. So in this case, the discounts are consisting of two things. The call earlier, I'd suggested it's based on a function of the market and whether the landlord needs to provide discounts to attract tenants. And that would be one component, but probably the most significant component here is the discount applied to the on-site caretaker for their suite. That being included in the discounts shown above. So it's gonna be a combination of those two things. It's like if the caretaker gets their suite for half rate.
So would you have a caretaker expense? Would you have for a 17-unit building?
Well, the actual expense that's listed on top of the discount would be the $626 for 2017, which is obviously a very nominal amount.
Yeah.
But the much bigger component of what they're earning or what the benefits they're getting would relate to the discount in their rent.
And again, I guess your expense ratio is a little lower than the city.
It's a wee bit lower, yeah.
Okay. And your NOI is a little higher, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Summation, if you want, either party. Okay. Okay. We'll go to St. Anne's Road, 406, and it's the last one on the docket. Mr. Van der Emmer, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last one, the docket has a file number 19-2469. It has a roll number 080030233500. It is located at 406 St. Anne's Road. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $1,026,000. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 2 stories, 1958 actual and effective year built. It has 14 suites and 9 outdoor parking stalls. The land area is 10,897 square feet, a planned area of 3,760 square feet, and a gross floor area of 11,280 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos of the subject property. On page 4 is the income valuation summary. Property has 14 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $721.87. It has a vacancy rate of 2.6%, an expense ratio of 55.68%, giving it a net operating income of $52,351. Using the capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,026,493. Page 5 are some rent comparables. They're all ranging from $844 up to $1,080 average monthly rent per unit. Just below it is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. Pages 6 and 7 are capitalization rate charts. And on pages 9 to 11 is where the 2017 income and expense information is, and that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
I thank you. Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The valuation is model driven, top to bottom, including cap rate.
Yes, that's correct.
And again, Mr. Chairman, questions asked and answered on cap rate, please. Thank you.
Right. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Marks?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Reimer, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Page 7, please. And in this case, going to the heart of the issue at line 33, our net operating income is within $1,000 actually, of just over 1,000 of this department's model-driven NOI, so very, very close and not a material difference. Again, as before, the cap rate is the issue at play in this appeal, and we're suggesting this is a 1958 build, so that falls within our bracketing of between 1946 and 1959 at 6.25%, and we are suggesting that 6.25% for the subject, which results in a value of $817,000, and request accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Van der Emme?
No
Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Marks?
No questions, Pete, thank you.
Nope. Summary, either party?
Thank
Okay.
you all for your time.
Thank you.
I thank you for your presentations, both of you, and I think that concludes our hearing. So, thank you very kindly. And results very soon, Mr. Reimer?
Thank you.